Hello, very good evening. In today's lecture, we will basically cover very basic fundamentals of how you can develop a website using only HTML and a very simple CSS. In this tutorial, we will try to create a simple HTML based website, develop a website that allows us to have multiple numerous pages for our specific HTML lab manual. So you already, all students have lab manual. I will try to drop the link in the description below as well. So get the manual from the lab, and the basic task is that you perform all these tasks. And now the way you submit it is you create a website where you showcase all your tasks, like a portfolio kind of a website. Okay, so in this, basically we will try to use a simple HTML based, and then we will apply CSS on it. Okay, so first we will just use pure HTML, no CSS, and we will design a simple website, that a complete website or web project, in other words, that allows us to understand how you can have a portfolio kind of a website where you can have multiple links and you can showcase your work. My name is Dr. Zeeshan. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe my channel so you receive these tutorials now regularly, and hit that bell icon so you receive the notifications as well. Let's begin. Now, I have prepared this manual already. My students already have this manual, but if you still don't have it, I will drop the link in description below. Download this manual. The basic idea is that there are various different tasks that you need to perform, and then you need to have a showcase, a website that will have all these tasks in them. Okay, so I click on, for example, task 1, and it should display this website here for me. So the first thing is, then whenever we need to develop a website, what should we do? Now, we have talked about HTML. You can watch my previous lectures, links in description below, on HTML and CSS. What we are basically trying to do here is to create a website. So I will not talk about creating certain sections, just a complete website. Now, whenever we design a website, you don't start the coding right away. The first phase in creating a website is your designing. By designing, I mean that website development, if I give it here, which is basically my portfolio. Okay, so there we go. So first thing is we do design. Okay, design, and or in fact, if I go before design, let me write requirements. Okay, sorry, require, requirements. Now, what are my requirements? My requirements are that I need a complete, for example, portfolio of my lab tasks. Each task on SCPER is separate web page. Okay, all tasks linked on main web page. Okay, so the idea is that I have to create a portfolio website for myself that showcases my work. How do you want to showcase it? I have this lab manual. All my students have it. All my students have to complete this particular website. What you need to do is you need to create a website that has these basic requirements. Now, these basic requirements basically mean that you need to have a website that has all this information. So let me crank up the font size so you can read it. All these requirements basically mean that complete a portfolio website for my lab tasks. Each lab task on a separate web page. So you basically create a task and save it as a separate web page. Task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, task 5, like we have done in labs and previous classes as well. Then link all these tasks to the main web page. So this is my requirements that I need to do. Okay. Then what my name is, not design. Okay. Design of web layout, for example. That's the second phase. So whenever we develop a website, whatever website it is, okay, we will be doing more projects now. Whatever website you develop, first you gather your requirements. What are your requirements for your project? Then how you going to design it? The design is usually based on your requirements. So in our case, I would like to say that, okay, and very quickly, let me find a draw button and let me just go ahead and draw. So my design would be, for example, I need a web page. So this is my web page layout. Here I can have my header. Oops, sorry, I'm using mouse for that. This can be my menus. Okay, and then this can be, for example, my tasks, something like that. Okay, now sorry, I'm using this mouse to draw and I'm not very good at, but usually this is, I'm trying to basically do a wireframe that I have a website that has a header, that has a menu, and that has typical boxes that allow me to view my, for example, or just a simple boxes that allow me to view my lab tasks. Okay, so that's the web design for it. So let's jump into it, and I'm going to use HTML only for now. Then we were going to do the same thing and revise it with CSS, and then we will work our ways towards more complicated designing aspects of it. Okay, so we come back here, and the first thing we tend to write is this thing, document type is equals to HTML bracket close. Now, what this line does, let me show you in a second. HTML and then backslash HTML. Okay, so this is basically an HTML5 standard that tells our browser that you are using a document HTML. Okay, it's like a metadata that tells your browser that the code or the content in this particular file is HTML web page based content. Okay, so it's just a metadata. If you don't give it, still your code will work absolutely fine, but it is now preferable because of multiple devices you use this thing. So once you do that, I press Control S, and let's just jump to my project window or wherever I want to save it. For example, BSIT morning, and let me say project portfolio.html. Okay, so this becomes my main page for project portfolio.html. Usually we use a what we call index file, but for this particular purpose I'm just going with this. Okay, so now I write title project portfolio. Okay, now what I did, I wrote a head tag and I have written a body tag. Okay, so now head tag is basically the tag that tells your browser all the information it needs to know. The body tells the page area what it needs to display. So whatever you need to tell your browser, we put it inside the head tag. Whatever you need to display on the page area for the user, we put it inside the body tag. And whatever is our in HTML code, we put it inside HTML. So these are the three subsections of any HTML that you would want to work with. HTML tag, you write everything inside it. Within HTML, we use two sections, head and body. Head tells the browser, body is basically the area that is displayed to the user. Everything inside HTML is in head form. We have discussed this. Watch my previous lectures and you will get a better idea. Now what we need to do is very simple. I need to write what we call a div. Okay, and within this div, basically I would within this div I would write my h1, my project portfolio. See, okay, and website. So this becomes my project portfolio website. Nice, nicely done. Then come back here, create another div. Now we have talked about div in previous classes as well. Divs are basically an empty blocks, empty piece of code that creates an empty block for your website. So they are specifically there to like a container, right? So you put it inside a container, all your components, and then you design your container and you control your container, and all the components within are basically automatically arranged with respect to it. So it's a very nice way and very common way of using divs to control all your containers. So we give it a particular heading. If you want, we can insert an image inside this header div. For now, I leave it here. Then let me write what do you call links. Okay, so in order to create links, I use a tag, a h reference, and for now let me just use hash, close this bracket, and I use home page. Okay, and then I copy this, Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V. For now, 4 links. So I can come back here and I can say, for example, HTML lab. Okay, and then I will include for now CSS labs, and then depends on what you want to do. For example, you can include your Java script script labs, which will be in future sessions. You can also include, for example, two more links, and then in this case I can give my CV, I can include my blog or whatnot. So basically this becomes your main links, and obviously we can edit them, create them later on. and it will be added as you go along. So once you click on this, let me click on the main button here, live button, and it should give me the light link here. So I have home, HTML, CSS labs, JavaScript labs, and this becomes my links. Now I'm not using any CSS at the moment, so it should be just a simple plain on links, and then later on we would add CSS to create more designs to it. Okay, so now this is just supposed to be a pure HTML based project. So I have added these particular links. Now home is supposed to be my this particular page, portfolio project.html. So I can give my link project folio.html. Okay, so now what this basically means is that when I click on home, it will take me to my project portfolio.html web page. Now the key thing here is that I have saved this page in the same location where my other files are already located. Okay, so this project portfolio.html is one folder. All other files that I will create will also need to be in the same folder. This is because we need to give the path correctly. This is what we refer to as a relative path. For a relative path, you need to ensure that all your files that are supposed to be like these, all different files, all these files reside in the same working folder. If you don't put it in the same folder, then you would need to use absolute path. Absolute path means you need to specify complete path like it's given here. E drive, inside E drive, web systems class, inside web system class, we have BSID morning. So this is a complete path. But here we have just specified the file name. This is called absolute path. In absolute path, you don't need to give complete path name, just the file name that you want to load, conditioning that your file resides in the same folder. So the file is in the same folder, we give it here. Now here I need to write HTML labs. Okay. So for this, for example, I give HTML labs labs.html. Okay, so this becomes my second file. Now I have not created this file yet, but I will assume that this, when I create it, I will give it this name. So what the way the links work is that each link needs to have a file name associated with it inside the A tag. The A tags are used for their link purpose. So when I click on save and come back here, now you see this, my home. If I click, home page is loaded. If I click on HTML lab, it will take me to a page that currently does not exist. So it's giving me an error. So if I go back, it's there. However, other links are there. When I click on it, nothing happens, but the links are active. The links are active because instead of giving a path to a file, I've given it hash. Hash is like a wildcard. It basically means refer to my own self. So I'm referring to my own self means my own current page that it is currently loaded on. So I have my links created. Now what I need to do is I come back inside this div and let me give a BR for a break line. Okay, with HTML5 standard, and let's just do this as well. Come back here. Oops, what did I do? Yeah, HR as well. Okay, so HR basically creates a horizontal line for this particular code. Then you can give whatever you want to give inside this content area. Sometimes we give tables, sometimes we give more divs, sometimes we create more components inside it. So in this case, let me create a div. Okay, and let's give it an h2. My name is h2 closes, and then h3, or let's just put it inside here as well. My name is Dr. Zing, ZEESHAN .BHATTI. Okay, and then this is my heading. Okay, so if I save it, my name is Dr. Zeeshan Bhatti. I come back here and give a paragraph tag. Welcome to my portfolio. I am a teacher of web systems and engineering course. Okay, in this course we will be learning website development tools. All right, so I gave a brief description about what basically I'm supposed to do. So this becomes my website, and then so on and so forth. I can include more content. So for example, inside this div, I include an image. So I write an image tag src is equals to bracket start bracket close, and I close this function. So now I need to insert an image. So in order to insert an image, first thing we need to do is we need to go inside our window browser, go inside the pictures, and let me drag a picture from here and paste it in the same folder. Or what we can do is we create a new folder, name it as images. Okay, and then what we do is all these default images I put side inside it. So let's organize the folders as well. So I create a folder inside the folder that I'm working on, and I name it what we call avatar, default avatar dot image, and I just hover it to ensure it's a PNG image file format. So now what I do is I give it .png, I save it, I go inside my web page, I hit a refresh, but the image is not displayed. The image is not displayed here because I've given it a file name but not the detailed path. Remember, the path is very important when you want to save your files in a particular way. So here previously I just gave it the name portfolio.project. Previously I just gave it portfolio.project as a file name without anything. That's because this file name is in the same folder. However, for an image I created another folder. So what we do now is we give it images images slash default png. So now we tell it go inside images folder slash go inside it, and there you will find a file name called this. So as soon as we save it, come back here, my image is already available here. Now it depends, you can give your image before your content area, okay, and it will be before my content area. So you can give this image here. You can have a header image for that particular case. So for example, if I go onto Google and search images and header for my portfolio, all right, oops, sorry, okay, here we go, we find some images here. I'm supposed to find my portfolio. I think this looks good, or this looks very good. So I save this image as, and making sure that I come back to the same folder in which basically I was saving the files. So I come back here, BSIT morning, images, and then I name it as HEADER, header, PNG, fine. And then you can choose whatever image basically you like. You come back into your code, and then on your header, after the div tag, for example, I come here, I give image tag, img image, src, and then I go inside images. Inside images, I have a header image and I close it. Control S, I go back into my display and my portfolio image is here. So my title and my image logos are displayed. Obviously, you can arrange these orders, but we will do arrangement and more beautification when we go into CSS. So let's not waste time with that in HTML, right? So basically, you get the idea what you're supposed to do. You can increase the width of this image as well. So for example, we put the width is equals to, I can say, for example, 50%, and then image will be basically 50% of your entire page. I can say, for example, 100%, oops, not 1000, not 1000, not 1000, 100% should do the trick. And the page basically now resides 100%. So if I increase the size, the image is 100% of my entire web page, depending on how big you want it. Okay, you can obviously use it or a smaller size as well, or just original. So for now, I just use it at 50%. That 50% of my page should look like that. I said, okay, no problem with that. Okay, so you see now my web contents are basically developing. I have a very simple website. My div tags are available here. Now the task comes that I want to have this HTML web page. So what I do is I take the same page that I've already designed. I go inside file, I save it as. Okay, I save it as, and I put it the file name as this one, right, which was HTML labs. So HTML labs.html. So I'm saving the same file that I had already created, and now I'm just renaming it. That's because I don't want to create a completely new code for my second page. So I have another page. So my portfolio, instead of now the header, I will leave the header there maybe, or I can change it to my HTML lab tasks. Okay, so these are my HTML lab tasks, my profile. Everything else remains same except this div tags here. I don't want this here, so I remove it. Okay, and here instead I will give another h1, my HTML lab tasks. Okay, here we go, and my page is here. Now what happens when I click on home? If I click on home, my project portfolio web page is displayed. If I click on my HTML labs web page is displayed. How this happened? Because in both my project HTML home, I have this link set up, in my HTML labs, I have this link set up. So now when I click on HTML lab, basically it takes me to my HTML labs web page. When I click on home, it takes me to my project home page. So my website is basically working. Now what I need to do is, inside my lab task here, I will create an unordered list, or maybe an ordered list. That should do the job. Okay, an ordered list basically means where it will have a list item with 1 2 3 4 1, and then I will create a list item. So list item is there. I will say task 1, okay, colon, task 1 is there, and this task 1 needs to be inside an HTML A tag, right? So when I click on this task 1, my task is done. So what I do is I create an anchor tag, I give it h reference is equals to quotation, and this A tag actually needs to be closed after this, so backslash A, and that should do the trick. So what I did now is Control S. If I see this, so you can get the idea from here. Okay, so once I save it, I go back into HTML task, my HTML lab task, and I have task 1. So when I click on it, it should load task 1 for me. So this is what basically my main project now requires. So that if I come into my HTML lab task, my HTML lab tasks are already there. So I have list in the form of unordered list. So task 1 is there, and then I give an A tag. Within my A tag, I write task 1 and the file name. Now the file name is supposed to be already there. I should have done the task 1 already here. Okay, I think let's just rename this correctly. So this is supposed to be task 1.1, I think, and this is supposed to be task 2. So what I'll do here is I will just select this and rename this file as task 2. There we go. And then similarly, we have all different tasks available, and we can create more files with it. So what you need to now do is you come inside this thing, and I just say go into task1.html. Extension is quite important so that it knows which basic file you are trying to work with. Okay, then let's just do copy paste. Control C, Control V, 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 Control V. As many tasks as you are going to do, basically you do this copy paste. Simple. Then this will be task 2, task 3, task 4. Just rename them to whatever task basically. Oops, sorry, not 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, and then 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, and so on and so forth. Same thing. Now the file name also needs to be updated. So what I do is task 2. Okay, I come back here. This will become task 3. This will become task 4, task 5, task 6, task 7, task 8, task 9, and 10. Similarly, 11, 12, and so on and so forth, right? So we start renaming it. As soon as I save it, I have all these tasks available. Now these are same tasks that are basically available inside your HTML. So what you need to do is print your name in green, right? So I can use this as well. So I can say task 1 was print your name in green, Control S. So my task 1 is there. So if I click on it, my name is in Zeeshan. My task is already created. Perfect. Now the problem is this task we created first time. Now once we created it, we only had this output and there was nothing else. So I had demonstrated the home button. So what I do is I come back inside this code, go inside file and open it. And let's just go back to the drive that I had, web engineering, class, website development, and I opened the task 1. So this was my HTML head, body, and I had a simple heading. My name is Zeeshan with a font attribute where we change the font, and then I had a link to my home button. Now what you can do is, because we're developing a project, I can create the div, I can create the links. Copy this, br, copy C. So all this top code, I can copy it and paste it in my heading tag up till this point. Control S, and now you can see this, that your entire header is exactly same. My name is Zeeshan Bhatti, this is paragraph. So if I click on HTML lab again, I come back to my page. I go back to home, I come back to home page. I come here, I have my one tag available. Now this is exactly same thing that you have to do for your remaining tasks. Just simply copy paste it. So task 1 is done, now task 2. Once I go inside task 2, we have a task 2 available. If I open the file, I should have a task 2 available. Same thing, this task requires me, so I come back here. The task 2 was to print a paragraph, that is description of a book. So I can copy this line so that my website looks more informative and it's not just blank tasks. I come back inside my code, go inside my HTML labs. In front of task 2, I print the description of the task. So once I save it, I know task 2 is a print a paragraph of description of a book. Okay. Once I click on it, that description of a book is available. This task description and the purpose is again also available in this HTML code. However, the output is again not as per our own standard. So what we do is we come back inside our code, we go inside in our previous code. For example, in this one, we copy the first div for the header, we copy the second div for the menu, and we copy the HR line, Control C, and we go inside the task 2. And instead of this home button, now I just copy this line. Control S, my HTML lab task, portfolio, all the links are there, my task number 2 is there. So I can give here one more line, for example, H2 lab task 2. Okay, Control S, and here's my output. So now if I go back into HTML labs, my last 2 is complete. Go back here, print paragraph, this is complete. And similarly, now I will go back into my HTML lab, task 3. Okay, so task 3 requires me to do another task, which is basically print your name on the screen with every letter being on a different heading size. So this is my task already done. So what you now do is you do this task, save it as task 3, and then you link it with this particular page. This is how basically you will create your entire website. So print your name on screen with every letter with a different heading size. I copy the question here, come back here and paste it inside the description. So my description looks very promising, and that's we are. So this is my portfolio website. Once I'm done with the HTML tasks, all my tasks are here. This is very easily now showcased. So I click on page 3. Obviously it's not there, but it should be once I create and do this task. Okay, I believe we have done some tasks. So let me say, for example, CSS. This is CSS task. So once you come into the CSS, we will include those tasks as well. So once I'm done with this page, I said fantastic. My one page is complete. Now I'll come into my HTML. This time I will use CSS labs.html. Okay. Similarly for JavaScript, I will create Java script labs.html. Okay. Similarly my CV, so I can use my CV. Let me just use small letters for now. My blog, I can use the link my blog. Okay, .html. So I create these pages. So for CSS, I say, okay, for CSS, I go inside the HTML labs and file, save as. So I take the HTML labs page, go inside here and use CSS labs.html. So I save the same page. This way I will have exactly same code. Okay, the only difference is this time I will just change the content. So I'm editing the template. So once I've done one page, I have a template. Now I change it. So this will become my CSS lab tasks. And I come here, all the menus should already be working. Once I'm here, this becomes my CSS task. So what I do is for now, I just remove these question descriptions. Okay, so that it makes more sense. I save it and my CSS lab tasks are here. And I will say my CSS lab tasks. So my HTML lab tasks will have my HTML lab tasks. If I go inside my CSS lab tasks, my CSS lab tasks are there. Done. So this is what happening now. So I have my website with some of the functional web pages. So my portfolio is creating. So whatever work I now do for my websites in my entire course, every task, every web page, every component that you create, you save it as a separate file, you link it somehow on your main web page. So what it will do, it will have hundreds of pages by the time you finish this course, and you will have a main working website that has all the information, and then you can define it, recreate it, put more CSS inside it. It will be more interesting to work in this way rather than just creating individual simple pages. So this becomes your first project, just simple HTML. However, I've not used any CSS. You would be doing it in next class. For now, just pure HTML, your work is done now. So CSS, I have CSS. The quick trick we can do is, because I'm using this editor, what I will do when I do CSS tasks. So if I come back inside my project, I think I should have my CSS tasks available. I will also share the CSS task for the next class in the next class session. but your CSS manual again is already prepared. In this, you have tasks that are related to CSS. So we do all these tasks same manner. Save it as your separate web pages. We create all these tasks. Okay, I will share this manual again within the description when I do the CSS projects. Do this, save this each as a separate exercise, as a separate page, and then you will have a main website that will have lots of sub pages. You can easily access all your tasks and then submit this project to me as your final project. This way it will be more easy for me to view all your tasks and check your grading, okay, and mark your grading, sorry, in that manner. Okay, so now we have CSS available. I come back inside my code. What I do is, just one thing to remember is that when I do the CSS, this is my CSS labs file. So in this, when I save my CSS file, I will ensure that I save it as CSS tasks. For example, in this case, CSS task 1, or I can say CSS test. So this is test. I will rename this as CSS task 1. This is CSS task 7. So let me just use a small caps for that. Okay. Usually it's my practice, whenever I name the files, I rename them as a small letters. It just makes more known pattern that all your file names are in small letters, right? So once I come back inside my code, what I do is I take this file. So wherever there is task1.html, copy this, go inside find and replace in files, not in all files, sorry. Find, replace in this particular file. So wherever you find task1, replace it with CSS. But this time, just remove the task letter and remove the task 1. So wherever you find the word task, replace this as CSS task. Understand? Hit replace all and replace all, and all your tasks, CSS task, CSS task, CSS task, already replaced. So now what they basically mean that when you save these files, you just save it as your CSS files, and it should work very quickly for you. So if I go back in CSS labs, so if I click on CSS1, it should take me to my CSS task 1 HTML, CSS, oh, okay, these are two files. This one mistake, Control S, come back, refresh, CSS lab task, CSS task 1, CSS task 1 is loaded. Okay, so the trick is, because I had HTML1, everything was already created, I saved it as and renamed the files as CSS task. So now when I go and create task 2, okay, for example, in this case, I have CSS, if I go back, the task 2, I think we should have already created it, but I will create it in next classes for CSS. It was supposed to be this thing. So using internal style sheet, create this kind of an output. So I have this file already, the code is already here for you. So what I do is, I right click, copy this, come back inside my code, create a new file, paste it, file, save as, and save it in the same location, web systems, I think BSID morning 1 here. So I just have to remember that I need to name this as CSS task2.html. Okay, so once this is saved, the CSS task2 HTML is saved. So I get the output already here. This is the same thing that we are supposed to get here. Once this is done, all you need to do is come back inside your, for example, task 1. Remember, we had to copy the header and the links. So instead of doing that, I will go back into my CSS lab. I copy the header and copy the links. Control C, go inside the CSS, and remember, this is where the body is starting. And this was supposed to be the head tag. This was supposed to be the body tag. So before here, let me just paste it, Control S, and there we go. Okay, so we have a CSS lab tasks, portfolio, my links are there, output is there. Now everything is background is blue or pink, sorry, because we have set the CSS here. We will talk about that in CSS class. So point of saying is, now you have a CSS website working for you. Okay, so HTML website for you. So now once you go inside your HTML lab tasks, you have more projects. So all these projects, all these tasks you complete, and then you link it with your main page. So if I come back here, remember, this is my project task 1, create a web page of your CV. So this, once you create your CV, you link it with your HTML code and you link it with your CV here. Okay, then once you come back into your project 2, create a web page HTML with the following data. So you link it with this thing. So you create this page, save it, and then link it with this thing. Similarly, all these tables, headers, navigations created, we will talk about them in future classes, and then create the final web pages. So finally you see web project 1. This is exactly what we have done. So this is your web project 1 that you have done, your personal portfolio website. I have only included main links, but you are supposed to include your biography, your education, your specialization. Now here's the tricky part that you need to remember. So for example, I come back into my code, and where is my remaining CSS lab tasks? What happened to this thing? Okay, I will open the files. I think we closed it somehow. So my portfolio, my HTML labs, let me just open it. So if I go back into portfolio, remember the portfolio web page doesn't have the links to these things. This was done in your CSS lab pages, in your HTML lab pages. This is the first error that needs to be debunked. Again, I come back into my home page. I said fantastic. I go into HTML page, it's working. I go inside my home page again. This time I go directly from my home page to my CSS lab page. Nothing happens. My JavaScript page, nothing happens. My CV, my blog, nothing happens. But then I go back into HTML page, it's loaded. I go back into CSS page, it's loaded. So if you hope you understand the error. From my home page, I'm not able to access the CSS page. From my home page, I'm not able to go to JavaScript page. But if I go inside HTML, now my CSS page is visible. Why is that? So let's correct this. So if my home page is supposed to be my project portfolio page. If I go inside it, remember this file, this link is not updated. Then if I go into HTML page, we updated these links. Then we go into CSS lab page, these links are updated. But in my main page, this link is not updated. So what I do is either I can type it or I can just be a lazy, copy it and paste it here. Control C. Remember, we did that for task 1 as well. So every page is supposed to have exactly the same links, working functional links. So now once you set all these things together, I said, okay, fine. Now if I come back into my home page, my website is working. I go into CSS, task 1, okay. I go into my HTML, I say task 2, I go back to home. So all links are now working, should be working. Now your project requires you to insert a link called biography, education. I said, okay, no problem. We go back into HTML, we go back into my portfolio, and I copy this link, home or whatever link you want to copy. And I said, okay, let me give this before here, these two links. My biography and my education. And these two pages are supposed to contain my biography, something about myself, my education, my hobbies, or whatever you want to include. So I renamed these pages as well. So I said, okay, this can be bio, GRAPHY, biography. This page can be HTML education. I save it. So this project is now saved. I go back inside my HTML. I'm thinking, oh, I've done these pages. I refresh it. Home, biography, education, HTML labs, CSS labs, everything is there. Perfect. So I go back to home. I go back to biography. Obviously, I've not connected it yet. So what I can do is very quickly, I can create a new page. I go back into my portfolio. Control A, Control C. Copy everything in my portfolio. Go back here. Control V. And then go back file, save as. And in the same folder where we had other files, in my web class BSIT morning, biography.html. Okay, so biography page is created. Just ensuring that the spelling of biography page is correct. Now my biography page is there. All I need to do is I need to leave this thing and delete this. My biography. Okay. I name it biography, biography, Dr. Zeeshan, BHA. So I have my biography page available. So now if I click on my biography, it's working. Home, I'm in my home. I go into my biography there. Perfect. Same thing we can do with education. So I take the my biography page file, save as. So we create this page, education.html. So either you create a new page, copy paste the code, or what you can do is you can save it as new page and education page is created. We have already linked it, education.html. So once you come into your education.html, instead of my biography education, I just changed the content. So now it's education, biography as biography, home is home page. I go HTML link, these two links are disappeared. Now again the trick with the pages and the error that we need to resolve. I go into home page, I have biography, I have education. However, when I go back into HTML labs, these two pages are disappeared. I go into task 2, biography, education are disappearing. I go back to home, these two links are there. The one main reason being is, if I go into portfolio, I have inserted these two links after I have inserted all other pages. So now I need to copy these two links, go inside HTML labs, come back here, paste them. Go into CSS labs, come back here, paste them. Come back into task 1, come back here, paste them. I need to insert these two pages in every single page that I'm supposed to include. That's why we said design and requirements. These two things. Know your requirements, design your web layout before you actually create them. Once you know your requirements and you work with that, okay, I need to have my biography, I need to have my education, I need to have HTML labs, I need to have CSS labs, I need to have JavaScript labs, it becomes easy. So you create a one template and then you copy this code and you replicate it. Up till point when we reach to PHP and Java, more advanced coding, then we create a separate header files and we work with that. But for now, if you're using HTML, this creates a problem. So be aware of the links. Designing is important. You need to have your header, your links, and your content area designed before you actually go and develop your website. So if you don't do that beforehand, you will now be stuck with copy pasting these codes manually in every single web page that you are basically using. So if I open, for example, biography page, I think I should already have it in here. Then I've opened CSS tasks, HTML tasks, every web page I need to include it. So now if I go back into home, biography, education, HTML, these two links there, CSS, these two links there, JavaScript page I've yet not created, but then what I will do is I will save the same thing. So I will come here, create a new page, go into biography, Control A, Control C, Control V, Control S, and then I will save it in the same folder, for God's sake, BSIT morning, Java script dot html. Okay, and now I will just change the heading to Java script lab manual. Okay, so I have a JavaScript lab. So now if I click on JavaScript, it's not working because the file name I wrote was JavaScript labs. However, I named this page as JavaScript. So what we can do is we can, I think, right click here and rename it. Click OK. It's not working. So let me just close it. Go back into this folder. The easy thing is, where's my JavaScript? Here it is. So I just click on the rename. JavaScript labs. So hopefully now if I come back, CSS labs, JavaScript lab is working. So if I go back into CSS, HTML, whichever page I go into, my links are working. So the most essential thing is make sure your links are working and your project is done. So for HTML, this is what you need to do is complete all these tasks, create a separate page for each output, link it with your main page. Try to rename it in a standard manner so you don't have to change it every time. So once you are in HTML labs, just rename them as task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, task 5, and all pages should be complete accurately done. Okay, so I hope this clarifies this first project. This is again a simple project. Just save these pages and these pages should also be linked with it automatically. The naming should be there. Copy the header files, and if you need to add more header files, we will just be working with. We will be working more advanced and see how we can edit the pages as we go along. Okay. Thank you very much. Do complete this project. Leave the project link in the comments below so I can check it. We will be talking about hosting the projects, where you can host it. I have a video already available on free web hosting. So check out my YouTube videos, and you will find a video there. I will leave the description in the link below as well, so you can check how you can host these web pages, and we will talk about that. Okay. Thank you very much. This is Dr. Zeeshan Bhatti. If you have watched this complete video, thank you for that, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon. See you around. Fi Amanullah.